In the top right is the blue terrain for Kaisi Gaming. He is INnoVation. You know, I'm aware that the movie intros are cooler, but a part of me kind of misses the really somewhat comical and cliche guitar riff. Yeah, can I do that for the next intro? Can I just like do it myself?
You know what? CG, you can do it right now. Do you want me to reintroduce the player and you can give us a guitar riff?
Yes, please.
Okay. Observer, go back to. Oh, okay, that perfect. In the bottom left, our red Terran, HeRoMaRinE. That was 3 notes. That's not a riff.
Yeah, that's all I can do, though. That's all I got.
That's all you've got.
I mean, it starts sounding like a drum at a moment at a certain point, right?
Okay, I mean, I feel like that's all the fun we're meant to have to do, CG. We've got to wrap this up. We've got to talk about all the serious things. TVT, huh? Double gas each on Jagannatha. What do you think? What's your opinion on like the state of TVT and openings right now? Because I feel like a lot of people are just one gas expanding still very frequently versus the double gas.
Yeah, I would say so. But I guess with a map that does not provide that natural high ground, this makes sense that they both take it pretty seriously. You know, it's not the shortest map, but it is actually one of the shorter ones as well. Both of those acceleration zones, you get over your opponent's side pretty quickly. You want to play it safe. And I do think that while, like, yes, the general state of StarCraft 2 is leveled out between the Koreans and especially the Europeans, but also North Americans. And Clem has provided a better basis of TDT practice and really elevating the rest of the European scene along with him, similar to what Cyril and Rainer were doing. I still think that this matchup, the way the decision making, like all that type of stuff it's still kind of a difference when you play against the Korean Terrans. And it can be just them being so aggressive can be sometimes really alarming. It feels like if it wasn't INnoVation, if it was some guy on ladder that HeRoMaRinE was playing, he'd be like, oh, what a terrible decision. Why would they do that? But because it's INnoVation, of course, he would never actually question. But for instance, INnoVation goes into the main just there, loses one Reaper trying to escape with the other one, but gets 2 SCVs. And then takes so long to actually be entirely cleaned up, doesn't have to worry about being countered.
That's the magical part of all of this, right? This Reaper has run around for so long, you don't actually get punished for having given up your 2 Reapers. It's just completely fine. So INnoVation just gets off to a good little lead to start us off.
Mm-hmm. Now we got Raven coming out for HeRoMaRinE, and for INnoVation, actually just adding on that tech lab. We should have that started up here. So no one's really playing TVT like Byun has been pushing it with a lot of those medevac openers, but it did feel like at times like Cure was actually bringing it back to Byun with similar types of stuff. With these 2 guys, I expect actually nothing but Raven play. You know, the early game could change a little bit with the build orders as far as 1 base versus 2 gas and 1 Rax expand, but Ravens, yes, absolutely. Maybe if it was a best of 5, like a cheeky like Hellion drop or a Marauder Hellion type thing opener, but the best of 3 between these 2 guys, known for their mechanical skill, their macro. It's going to be more about the execution, who might attack first, who's looking for how many Ravens as well. Right now, they're both just going up to the second one, and then they both went for a Cyclone. It's kind of the only other thing that's different is that INnoVation has a lot more tanks already.
Yeah, no, INnoVation has the, like you say, the 2 tanks already, and that's actually kind of a big deal, I would say. I mean, it just has been a better setup for INnoVation overall. Because what's INnoVation really behind it? Like, he didn't make a Widow Mine. That doesn't have that much of an effect. He didn't make a Hellion. That doesn't really matter at this stage either. So INnoVation's really just gotten away with what I would call a better opening. Okay, his second Raven is a slight bit later, but that's hardly overly influential here. And as Starports finish up that second Raven, we'll just see if INnoVation wants to do what HeRoMaRinE did, which he does not. So HeRoMaRinE will take air control. He's going to make double Vikings with the reacted Starport. INnoVation just floats his Starport to build its own reactor. So he's going to be up an add-on, INnoVation, but again, he will not have air control here, and that's sometimes hard to play around. So we'll see if that is going to give HeRoMaRinE enough to make up for the lack of tanks.
Once we move into more of the mid game with a decent number of Marines, then yeah, the Viking control is a little less important. And then we move into the late game and Viking control becomes important again. But early game stuff, Vikings, yeah, very much so can make up for what is one or maybe even two less tanks, depending on how they engage here. Now, two less tanks would be a pretty big deal. So I'm pretty sure HeRoMaRiNE's not going to be looking for that one. But if he can start also microing his Vikings against the Ravens, getting damage on them already, forcing them to pop spells when they're a little uncomfortable, I mean, something could happen. But since they're both meeting each other in the middle of the map, they both know what each other's armies look like, I don't actually see this going very far in either direction. And it's more about who's using this presence on the map to get their third base down, to continue macroing better than the other player, if they can. HeRoMaRiNE does add on his double engineering bay a bit later, but okay, INnoVation does start his 1-1. So INnoVation getting ahead again in the overall macro game. The Vikings are a little concerning for maybe another minute, and then I think they're going to be a lot less so since INnoVation's on that decent Marine production. And, we could even see some drops, a real push from INnoVation, maybe when Stim and Combat Shields is on the way. And this could be one of those TVTs that does actually end up just kind of being like, well, we can't kill each other, so let's go to 4 bases and 5 bases. That does happen, and maybe it'll be this one. But I would hope that one of them starts to try and maneuver again, and then we see a little bit more with the control front. But you know what, Wardy? Now that I brought it up, I'm kind of feeling the really passive 4-base TVT that goes 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Jagannath sometimes lends itself to that, but INnoVation is going to start moving out. I mean, you kind of want the upgrades before you really take a fight, but I guess right now it is upgrades versus no upgrades, so it's kind of okay. I mean, here come the Vikings, and they're just kind of good, right? So, whoa, we're going to turn around.
Whoa.
INnoVation is going to take a very bad fight. His Ravens didn't really do a lot very quickly, but he does get more tank siege, so he wins the tank fight until the Vikings land on top of his tanks. And then, well, the Vikings are going to clean up in the end, but it costs you all of the Vikings more or less. It's fair to say, I think that both players kind of traded out a lot here. Maybe HeRoMaRiNE comes out ahead because of the extra Ravens still alive, and because INnoVation obviously went in with more tanks and he lost all of his tanks, so there's one left alive for HeRoMaRiNE.
Yeah, that was one of those funny ones that does kind of just like it's a wash. Like no one can really continue forward because they lost so much. But you know, when you were like looking at it from HeRoMaRiNE's perspective, I was looking at it from INnoVation's like, oh, he got his tanks siege up so much faster. I really thought that HeRoMaRiNE was going to back away from it, but he said he engaged with the Ravens going a bit better for him, and it did end up turning okay, especially because he could land his Vikings. So there you go. Sometimes that happens. It doesn't always have to just be one fight leading to a big victory. And this will continue on into a 4th base, which INnoVation takes on location, which is, I think, the better call. One of them, I mean, a single medevac with 8 Marines can be enough of annoyance to be worth it, but it's not something that we see, I feel like, in these types of games too often. They both usually just are like, yep, time to rebuild. We lost all our stuff. Time to get our second factories, start up our upgrades, and that's what they're doing. Center tower is coming down, of course, and I could even see INnoVation adding on the second one pretty quickly since his 4th is on location. And then if it happens in this way, where they both are looking towards that more macro game, we could be kind of just looking at who starts their starports first, as who's going to get a lead in that sense.
Yeah, it's very much so going to start going into those later stages where not really much is gonna happen for a while. A bit of map control taking, they're fighting Marines with Marines and just try and take a bit of vision, and SCV gets denied up here, but very minor advantages/disadvantages as we just see 2-2 on the way up. And yeah, we, like you say, kind of who goes into starports earlier, who starts fighting for that proper air control more quickly. That's basically the questions we end up asking ourselves right now, because otherwise it's just not very there's not really very much else to talk about here. As I just realized they're both on 7 rack siege. Is that normal for TVT nowadays instead of going to 8?
If they're both doing it, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, that's the thing though, because in my head it's just always, you go 3, then 5, then 8, right?
Yeah.
But now they're both on 7, and if one of them was on 7, I'm like, oh, that happens. But because they're both on 7 and everything else looks so similar, like if you look at the structures tab, it is structure for structure. And I'm just like, huh, both 7 racks. That like just grabs my interest.
Yeah, gotta update our knowledge here. I'm actually not too surprised. I mean, I feel like because so many TVTs like this go right into starports, that I'm not surprised there'd be a little less emphasis on busting out as many Marines as possible, because that is a little bit of minerals in your pocket, a tiny amount, and HeRoMaRinE is using that to go to the starports faster than INnoVation. Now, INnoVation, I don't think will be that far behind. They're both so close to max. They still have, you know, defender's advantage, ramps to work with. I don't see INnoVation taking a good enough fight, but actually, again, HeRoMaRinE a bit later to the siege, but gets an anti-armor missile, so that goes well for him. But not well enough, not enough Marines. INnoVation just simply steamroll forward. He takes care of the tanks, takes care of the Marines, and he's gonna take care of this game. That'd be a little dramatic. HeRoMaRinE has taken a blow here.
Yeah, I feel like if these Marines split up or target fired tanks a little bit more quickly, then maybe as it stands, I mean, INnoVation's backing away. He could also just siege his tanks. He's had an eternity to do that and just hasn't. So maybe missing an opportunity there. And once again, Vikings are going to land on top of these tanks. The reinforcements of INnoVation are about to show up. They're just a little bit slow to get there. They'll capitalize and kill off the Vikings at least. And there's no defensive siege tank at the moment from HeRoMaRinE. They're both in production, so it gives INnoVation the chance to get the siege. And he might finally capitalize on that one fight by actually taking this right now and just going for some SCVs and tanks. Target fire Marines, ignoring the SCVs, which is what you want to do. Let the Marines deal with those. Get rid of the Marine count. Now Marines are going to run forward for the tanks. And even if this gets cleaned up now for INnoVation, he's already killed 18 SCVs. The damage is done. And what he rallies across the map from here on out is just going to be more than what HeRoMaRinE can produce.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to be the game-ending push, but it might just be HeRoMaRinE not taking good enough fights. Maybe should have just played defensive. And I mean, I think that is actually like, he's going to look at the replay and be like, oh, I shouldn't have even tried pushing out into anything. Because he was going for the faster starports. Unbeknownst to him, he might have just been like, oh, we're both doing that thing. We're both going into the starports, but actually INnoVation had slightly more supply and was looking to be aggressive, so he switched up a bit quicker as well. Now INnoVation goes into starports because cracking a Terran who does eventually get enough tanks to hold, like we see here, is difficult. And one of the easiest ways to do it is not necessarily by overpowering them with 40 more supply, which INnoVation does have, but by getting into your own Viking Liberator or your own Ravens. Either way, HeRoMaRinE's going to try and bust out of this, but that is 5 tanks. 2 of them are taken out of the equation, but there's still so much more left over. INnoVation taking game 1, not letting it actually go to Supreme late game PvT. Actually getting it shut and closed by minute 14.
Yeah, no, he really just added his starports a bit later, and maybe that gave him a little bit more in the fight, but the fight was just better for him. He was in a bit more of a position where he could spread out. He sieged a little bit more quickly, and while HeRoMaRinE almost prioritized getting the anti-armor missile down, that didn't matter versus the tank damage INnoVation was able to put out. And the game really just devolved from that point into this position where INnoVation just gets across and is able to capitalize. So HeRoMaRinE played a good first 10 minutes. Just one fight goes the wrong way, and in a way that is just TVT, right? You just can't make one big, engagement mistake, because if you do that, you're going to start falling behind. You're going to end up with less units than you need to have, and then you have a base siege, and at that point you have to start making plays. Making plays when your opponent doesn't let you get across the map obviously isn't going to happen. So a little bit rough. INnoVation takes that first map, and we go for Lightshade for map number 2. So do you go to HeRoMaRiNE's map pick, at least for this second map, which is obviously in TVT map picks are like maybe not quite as valuable as in non-mirror matchups, but there still is that idea of what style do you like to play? What sort of builds would you like to go for? So maybe something here that HeRoMaRiNE is more comfortable with. Maybe that helps him out to get a map on this series.
There's a lot more open space on Lightshade and some other maps, and it is the shorter map as well, but we wouldn't really pin HeRoMaRiNE as being the aggressive guy. I mean, if this was a loser's pick situation, we could be like, oh, he wants to be aggressive because he just lost the macro game, but it's preset. He has no idea how the first game's going to go. So I'm not sure what this means, except that HeRoMaRiNE feels comfortable on the map, which could still do well for him to bring this series back. I mean, that was, you're right, it was a good first 10 minutes. There was that one fight that was just good enough on both sides that they were like, okay, I guess I won in the game. But it did end up being a game that one bad fight led to the ultimate defeat of the opponent, which is just too bad. I mean, we see that, but if they have 5 tanks left at home, then it's like not a big deal. It's still like, considerable, but it doesn't end the game. And that just wasn't the case for HeRoMaRiNE, who had invested so much in his starports he didn't really end up getting to use. In the bottom right, we have the winner of that last game. He is the Blue Terran INnoVation. Nice.
CCG, what they did there was the riff played more than 3 notes. Just
I would challenge you to do a riff with more than 3 notes.
in the top left-hand side, our red Terran player is HeRoMaRiNE. I feel like you underestimate my ability to make up stupid tunes.
I mean, I'm waiting.
I'm not doing it on DreamHack. Like, I'm not that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right then.
If you want to tune into the 40 stream, like I make a fool of myself all the time.
Whatever, man. Sign of a comfortable commentator is when they can make a fool of themselves on a huge broadcast, which is why Kalaris is the best commentator.
I wouldn't say that about his hair. It's not that bad.
Oh, come on. That was come on. Not even like a little bit of like a oh. Okay.
All right. I give an ooh in my own way.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyways, we do have 2 gases for both sides. Again, opening up in what could be an aggressive way, but is actually oftentimes just because the other person might be doing it, so it's safe. Last game, INnoVation did get kind of a bit of a better start because he didn't go for that Hellion. He got the extra tank out a lot faster, and it was only like 5 to 10 seconds, not even, late on that Raven. So I wonder if that's something that HeRoMaRiNE's also going to try and skip and play a bit more of a streamlined game from this factory expand opener. But it's also really, you kind of have to do this. You feel the need to do this on a map like Lightshade as well as Submarine. If you're one-max expanding on those maps, you're a very risky person.
Yep, it's just not something you really see. So not a surprise to see double gas again, and we are going to see a pretty massive double gas for the moment. Either player will move across with the first Reaper, which is fine. We're going to go 2 Reapers and a Hellion each, and we'll see if they just want to go 2 and 1, or if they want to go 3 and 2. That can obviously change up how the game follows up a little bit. Looks like it's going to be 2 Reapers into 1 Hellion from both of them, both into a reactor to follow up. And yeah, we go from there.
Yeah, mirrored so far. HeRoMaRiNE actually even getting the Widow Mine just like last game. I guess was the start of the difference. And we'll push off like a tech lab a little bit more. But if they both are thinking towards the 3rd base, which is oftentimes what happens from this setup, you know, they're thinking more towards a later game, and TVT hasn't had a 2 base all-in in quite some time. I can't remember seeing. Well, I think I did. I think Uthermal did one because, you know, Uthermal would be the guy who did it. But anyways, like it just always goes in the 3rd CC past a certain point. Seems to be that point. And I'm not surprised by that. Both players being who they are, but INnoVation actually looking to prove me wrong. Adds on a medevac, so he's going to be a bit aggressive. He's going to try and do a tank drop somewhere clever, maybe to the right of HeRoMaRiNE's barracks. Try and shoot down the reactor.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely space there to kind of get in and siege a tank and to be a little bit annoying, right? So we'll see what happens. I mean, this Banshee from HeRoMaRiNE, though, is actually really good defensively in these scenarios, because if there's no Viking or anything, then Marines alone don't really push back that Banshee very effectively, so it can kind of sit around and really push that position away quite easily.
Yeah, they're changing things up a little bit. I do appreciate that. The Banshee kind of coming back in TVT after a long absence of just being like a kind of a risky move to try and shock and awe your opponent, to being one that, yeah, some players are actually quite fond of. There's the positioning I was talking about. So you can hit the reactor, and that's about it. The Cyclone doing a good job warding away the medevac. Tank pops out. Banshee is here. Just a cloakless Banshee, so the fact that it's revealed isn't the biggest of deals. They're actually going to try and tear down that tank. Not quite.
Ooh.
Pick up and leave. That wasn't exactly what INnoVation wanted from that exchange.
Yeah, no, this is... I feel like that was just a moment away from INnoVation losing the tank as well, right? Which would have been really good for HeRoMaRiNE. So I got to give credit to INnoVation really just getting out of that the very last moment. So, I mean, the thing is, this really comes out of being pretty even again, though, right? Still like 39 to 36 SCVs. Army supply a little bit advantageous to INnoVation across the board. HeRoMaRiNE will be the first to start 3rd CC, so he's a little bit more quick to go to that one. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see what the swap-ups are going to be. Right now, you can see the racks to Tech Labs, and HeRoMaRinE is going to bring his starport to the reactors. Pretty much the same as last game, only this time he's doing it off of 1 Raven because he built a Banshee initially. INnoVation will go to 2 Ravens, and then we'll see what his plan is from that. And I mean, Ravens are just so good, right? You know, we talk about them all the time. They're really pivotal units in TVT. I always just feel like having 2 is way better than 1. Even if your opponent gets like a Viking lead or something, that second Raven, the extra auto turrets or an extra Matrix can absolutely just change engagements on its own.
Agreed. It's one of the reasons why Banshees fell out, is that you want your own Raven, and then it is just the expectation that your opponent has a Raven, so that can deal with the Banshee very easily, and usually a Cyclone as well, which INnoVation has, but it's just out of position. HeRoMaRinE biding his time very well with that Banshee. They'd have been revealed, and you probably thought INnoVation would be looking for it, just waits a little while longer, and does go into the perfect time to get 4 SCVs, delay the command center, even kind of could get a little bit of a scout, and if the starport did go onto the reactor, can't really evacuate from here, because again, it's not with Cloak. That would be too much of an investment for this, but I don't know, for causing the INnoVation to pause in the middle of the map, the Vikings to go chase it down, and for 4 SCVs to be killed, I mean, it's an okay Banshee. Give her like a B+.
Yeah, no, I always think for 1 Cloakless Banshee, if you're forcing, like, you know, this entire attack from INnoVation stopped because of the Banshee, right? You know, he sent the Cyclone back to deal with it and all of that. Otherwise, he was already moving across the map, so, you know, Banshee picks up SCVs, slows INnoVation down. Like a B+ is even a little bit harsh, but you know what? It's early days. I get it.
Just I'm really harsh, man.
You're just a
high
half rated EG. Like, I get it, right? I see how it is. Hey,
Yeah.
INnoVation's just gonna walk up this left side. HeRoMaRinE just did not see this move coming, and so now he's in a little bit of a tough spot where he actually has to evacuate some of his SCVs from the mineral line, and it's like otherwise they're gonna get shot down. So all of a sudden, he's kind of rocking a position here as INnoVation, which is really difficult for HeRoMaRinE to fight, and he's actually in range of the tank, which just gets set up. That's a nice Matrix, and that's exactly what you want to see there for INnoVation. For HeRoMaRinE to take down a tank, but he's supply blocked, he's down on supply, and INnoVation is still the one with position.
INnoVation is doing this, you know, while pushing off some of his own upgrades, though, so that is worth considering if this eventually is broken, but I don't know if it will be. The Raven's being used by INnoVation to take out every last tank. 1 pops out, but isn't going to be able to siege in time. SCVs are pulled into this. This is going to be a drastic loss for HeRoMaRinE, no matter how you spin it, and I do believe it is an actual loss of the game, as HeRoMaRinE goes down to 55 supply. INnoVation will take the 2-0, and this